Looking for a revolution, a treasure hunt, an illusion, a rabbit hole to go down and under.
Hey everyone, it's Rob from Four Songs. You know, those of us from a certain age, say someone in their mid to late 40s to the mid to late 50s, we're pretty fortunate people. We got to watch the world change. We watched freedom movement spread near, far, and wide. From the solidification of the civil rights movement here in the States, to the end of apartheid in South Africa, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the peace accords in Northern Ireland. For a while, it seemed, freedom was sprouting everywhere. And when you think back to it, each of these events had a soundtrack to go along with it. Whether it was punk rock, reggae, hip-hop, even pop music, freedom was as much an art form as it was a movement. Those of us who remember watching Germany reunite did so, with George Michael's Freedom 90 in the background. Bob Marley's Redemption song defined a generation of civil rights activists. Bands like the Pogues, U2, Sinead O'Connor, Black 47, they were the soundtrack to the end of the Troubles in Northern Ireland, and so on and so forth. While music in and of itself didn't bring about these changes, it certainly played a key role in inspiring people and spreading the message. Indeed, as Black 47 lead singer Lara Kerwin mentioned to me this summer, once the spark of freedom is lit, it never goes out. And it looks like the spark has been lit in Cuba, and now we've got the soundtrack to go along with it. In this episode of Four Song Singles, I talked with Lisset Diaz, lead singer and songwriter of the Havana by way of Nashville-based Sweet Lizzy Project, about her band's latest single, Dreaming of a Revolution, Otra Revolucion, released this past fall. If you remember, Lisset was on this show back in July, just days after the historic July 11th protests throughout Cuba. She talked about the risks the protesters were facing by speaking up against the government, and the risks she and her band were taking by supporting them so publicly. She also mentioned the band's next album, Pirate Radio/Radio Pirata, coming out next spring, will address the fight for freedom in Cuba directly. The record was recorded in English and Spanish, meaning that each song was written and recorded twice. And because Dreaming of a Revolution, Otra Revolucion, is the first single from the album, the band wanted to do something special for each one. So that means there's actually 4 versions of this song. The original English and Spanish versions, and 2 with special guests. The revised Otra Revolucion, the Spanish version, features legendary Cuban protest singer Carlos Varela, who helped Lisset on the English to Spanish translation. And not to be outdone, the band recruited Raul Malo, singer-songwriter of the iconic rockabilly Latin country Cuban band The Mavericks, for the English version, Dreaming of a Revolution. As the song itself implies, Dreaming of a Revolution is about a dream. It's not explicitly about Cuba, but it is a message to our country and freedom fighters around the world. That message is, freedom is real, and it's worth fighting for. The inspiration for this song didn't come from the July 11th protests, but rather from a hunger strike that happened last year. In fact, it was when Lisset heard that a childhood friend of hers participated in the hunger strike that the freedom movement in Cuba hit home. In this episode, we talk about how emotional this song became, especially as she saw more and more people standing up for themselves and protesting against the Cuban regime. In this interview, you can tell in her voice how important these issues are and how much they mean to her and her bandmates. This song truly comes from the heart, and you can hear it throughout. So while a good protest song can make your day, a great freedom song can change lives. And Dreaming of a Revolution, Otra Revolucion, will change lives. So it is my high honor to welcome back Lisset Diaz to Four Songs. Well, thank you, Lisset, for joining me again for Four Songs. This is going to be talking about your latest single, Dreaming of a Revolution, or Otra Revolucion, which is the first single off your forthcoming album, Pirate Radio. So, yes. First things first, how are you?
I'm good. I'm very happy with both songs, Dreaming of a Revolution, Otra Revolucion, and the original versions came out mid-October, and then we had guests. We had Raul Malo on the English version and Carlos Varela, who is a very, very famous and well-known and super talented and amazing singer-songwriter from Cuba. And I hate that I'm saying all these things about Carlos Varela. I didn't say anything about Raul Malo. It's just that I've worked with Raul Malo before, even though he's all these things that I just said. This is my first time working with Carlos Varela, and we're very, very excited about it. So we have actually 4 songs out there, and 4 of them are just doing great. Like people are loving it, and we love them as well. So yeah, I'm doing good.
Well, yeah, the song's fantastic. We'll talk about that briefly. But the last time we spoke, it was right after the protest started in Cuba. So I was just wondering, first of all, how is your family? And is there anything new
Yeah,
you can share about that?
it's all good. I mean, that happened on in July 11th. Things apparently went back to new normal. So we'll see what happens next, but everybody's okay.
Good. So, Dreaming of a Revolution. This is, again, it's going to be off Pirate Radio. When is the album coming out? Just so those of us who can't wait to hear it.
April 2022.
Okay.
But we're going to have 2 more singles coming out before the release date. So we have a new single coming out in February and another one in March. And then the record comes out, which is not really 2, but 4, because it's both English and Spanish.
Yeah. Well, we can't wait to hear that. So that's one thing I wanted to talk about. So you mentioned, there's the 2 straight up versions that are in English and Spanish, and then you have the guests you have Raul Malo and then Carlos Varela. How did those come together? Because it's interesting, because it does seem like a bit of a handing of the torch in a way from kind of the Gen Xers or the boomers to your generation of singers. So I'm curious how either both of those relationships came together.
Well, Carlos Varela has a very important role on this album. I mean, not only this song, but once we conceived the project and we knew we were going to do a Spanish version of Pirate Radio, we thought that it would be great to have, other artists that we love, and especially if they are good writers. And Carlos Varela is, I don't want to say the best, but I could say it. So we presented the project to him, and we sent him a few songs that we already had kind of recorded, and he fell in love with Dreaming of a Revolution. So he was like, yeah, of course I'm going to do this with you, but also I want to sing on this song, the Spanish version, of course. And that's how we decided to have both versions of Otra Revolucion, with and without Carlos Varela. And then we felt like if we were doing that with Otra Revolucion, we should do the same thing with Dreaming of a Revolution. And because of the spirit of the song, and the fact that even if it's not necessarily about Cuba, it was inspired by some of the events that happened in Cuba at some point, and it's so relevant right now. Mm-hmm. We thought that it would be great to have another Cuban, and Raul Malo is kind of Cuban, and it's a Cuban from Miami. Mm-hmm. And he loved the song since he heard it the first time. So
yeah, well, I mean, the song is fantastic. And how did it come about? When did you put it together?
I wrote the song in January.
Oh, so it's
this year in January. So yeah, like a lot of people are asking me if I wrote the song when the July protest happened, and no, the song is a lot older than that. I don't know. It was all part of the when we were writing Pirate Radio. It was like a story. It was like an imaginary character doing things and going through this story. So we knew what songs were missing, what parts of the story we needed to tell, and we needed a revolution. We needed hope. And if you've listened to the song, it's not about a war or a physical confrontation. It's more about it's a dream. It's about like a revolution from my bed. When someday you just wake up and you feel like things really need to change, and that's and that's the beginning of it. And that's, to me, that's what is happening in that what was happening in Cuba back then, the beginning of it, like more and more people, more and more hearts beating at the same time and feeling like something needed to change. My heart included. Like, even it doesn't matter if I'm not there, I still feel and breathe for Cuba and for the people that I know, my country.
I'm looking for a revolution, a treasure hunt, an illusion, a rabbit hole to go down and under, a wind that takes a flag with you. I'm looking for a revolution.
When I heard it, the music and then the lyrics, it's almost like a Springsteen or a Dylan song, and certainly up there with some of the greats, with even the Clash or Sinead O'Connor. So just, because it's so relatable and, it's approachable, because, sometimes protest songs can be pretty abstract, but this one is like, it's clear what you're trying to say. And so I'm wondering, because, when we spoke last in July, you were talking about the risks that you were taking and others were by speaking out. And so when you talk about being free and singing of being free, like, you mean that like literally.
Yeah.
So it seems like it carries a pretty strong mentality, I think, when you hear it.
A revolution, a wake-up call, a solution, a magic world to beat the monster, a wonderland to be free with you. I'm looking for a revolution.
When the events of July happened, I couldn't even think of the song. Like, I didn't feel like a lot of artists put songs out when that happened, but I didn't feel like doing that. I was, we all were like grieving and trying to, take it all in. And it was so hard to process that. I felt like we all needed to slow down and just take our emotions out of it, and then think about the song, because there were so many opinions and people didn't know what was happening, and like we thought that people needed to think about what had just happened, and then otherwise I think the song would have had interpretations that, like a violent interpretation that was not, it's not the spirit of the song, and it's definitely not what we want to express. So that's why we waited. Also, we wanted to have all these collaborations, like all these artists on the songs, and we didn't want to rush it, and I think we did good. I think it was the right timing.
Yeah. And I mean, I love the ending, because that's, I think, when it really carries, because you hear, especially with the Raul Malo version, and he's saying that they're dreaming, and then of a revolution. When I heard that version, for some reason, that's the one that hit me really hard. Like, oh wow, this is. I love the early versions, but for some reason, the ending, the one that he sings, it was like, this is powerful. was it like to write this song? Just kind of going back to that mindset in January when you were putting the pen to paper, was it an emotional for you to do, or was it kind of hard, or was it just kind of come out of you?
It was not a hard song to write. I remember that I came up with a melody first. Like I had that melody, even like I thought it was going to be a melody for a different song. Actually, it was going to be the melody. It was be the song for the title track, and then for some reason, when I was mumbling the chorus, the word revolution came out. One of those things that just happened, and you don't know why. I was not thinking about it necessarily. It happened, and when that happened, I was like, okay, this is not gonna be the title track, which is pirate radio. This is gonna be something else, and it's gonna be about a revolution. And it's it all goes back to what happened. There was a hunger strike in November 2020 in Cuba. And that was kind of, I think it was the first time that I saw Cubans fighting, like for real. I come from where I come from. I never had to see a protest or was not in touch with people who did that. And later on I knew that there were groups of people and organizations in Cuba that are actively fighting for human rights and things like that. I just didn't know about them. And then because when I was in Cuba I didn't have internet, then I got here and I was not really looking at it. But then this happened and everybody was talking about it. And I knew one of the it was a man that was part of the protest, and I knew him like from the school days and all that. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe, and it hit me like really, really hard. So that was I think that was inspiration for the album in general. So I used a lot of my emotions that whatever happened to me when I saw that hunger strike happening, that I use for not only Revolution but the entire album. That it's very cohesive. I think it's by far the most cohesive album we've ever written.
One thing I was curious about, since you have the different versions, you have the English and the Spanish, and you don't have to answer this question, but do you have a favorite version of it?
I do. We wrote all the songs in English first.
Okay.
Except for one that was written in Spanish first. So the version of that song was an impossible task, because when I write a song, I try all the possible different paths that I can think of, just to make sure that I'm choosing the one that I like the most. So when I get it and I choose one, it's like, okay, this is it. This is a song. If you have to do a translation, then all the sounds are going to change. The words are not going to fit. You have to rethink the ideas. You have to rethink the way to send the same message with a different language. It was impossible. And I never write in Spanish. So it was a nightmare. Like literally, I couldn't even sleep. I would go to bed at night thinking of, what's the right word here? What am I going to say? What am I going to say? And like finally some days I would wake up in the morning, yes, this is a word. And some other days are like, nope, this is a shitty idea. I just have to keep thinking about it. So in the case of Dreaming of a Revolution, I think I like the English version better, because that's the one I came up with first. Mm-hmm. But I have to say that the Spanish version is one of the versions that I am happier with. Like I'm very happy about that version. Some other versions are okay. Some others are exceptional. Some others are like my favorite. Even though I wrote the English version first, the Spanish version is my favorite. But this one, I'm very, very happy with the Spanish version. But we had Carlos Varela. He wrote part of that song.
Oh, okay.
Like I started the translation. Miguel and I did actually. We started the translation and we sent it to him. You know, what do you think? Do you think we should change and or tweak things around? And he sent a couple of changes. Just okay, this word would be better, or let's move this thing. And it was magic. It literally was.
Busco la luz de un aguacero, otra visión, otro viajero.
Una tormenta de colores, un cuento con otro final. Somos tú y yo, la revolución. Sueño con otra revolución. No habrá nada que temer, será un nuevo amanecer.
So as we wrap up, and I know you were just on another one of Carlos's singles called, and I might get this wrong, about the Feria de los Tontos. Did I get that?
La Feria de los Tontos.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Fool's Fair.
Yeah. So that just came out, right?
Yes, and that one is I'm not sure if you read the lyrics. It's a long song in Spanish, but it's really, really good. Like in Spanish, like
Mhm.
if you translate it, maybe things get lost in translation, but
Yeah.
it's very good and very appropriate for all the things that are happening in Cuba right now, and very open to different interpretations because he's a poet, right? But my interpretation and from a lot of other Cubans is it's a song about the need for freedom in Cuba again, and it's a very, I wouldn't say against the government, but yes. So, but again, this is not something he told me. This is my interpretation, the way I feel the song while I was singing. We were the band. We didn't write with him, but Miguel did the arrangements with Carlos, and we recorded pretty much everything. And I remember when I was singing the song from the beginning to end and I finished, I was like, I'm pissed off. Like, this song makes me angry. I feel power when I sing this song.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Well, your song gives a lot of people hope. So we're grateful for you being back on here. And this is an exciting time to be a Sweet Lizzy Project fan, it sounds like.
I can't wait to be back on the road and be able to sing, this song and all the other songs, and yeah, can't wait.
Well, thank you again for joining me tonight. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for this interview and all the other interviews. You always have time for me.
And a big thanks again to Lisset for joining me. It's always a pleasure to have her on the show. You can go find Dreaming of Revolution or Otra Revolucion on your favorite streaming services, Spotify, Apple Music, everything else. Go get it online. Check out the website, sweetlizzyproject.com. Go get a copy of it or copies of it and listen to you'll love it. Anyway, I got more coming. Got a great interview I can't wait to get done, and you'll be hearing about it before the end of the year. Stay tuned.